Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave. Today I have 13 Glitch in the Matrix and Supernatural stories for you. He passed away, I'm sure, but now he's alive again? Case file number 2130, written by Ryan Gosling. A friend's demise, now before our eyes. So I graduated from university in 2020. I remember one of our classmates passed away due to the nasty virus. Didn't really know him that well. Our conversations never got past greetings. Fast forward to last week. We had a reunion, and I see his brother at the reunion. Later find out it's not his brother, it's him. I was too afraid to say anything. Didn't want people to think I'm crazy. And I couldn't backpedal and say I'm joking because joking about someone's death in our culture is extremely insulting and considered a bad omen. And I didn't want to be that guy. So I just spent the evening acting casual and talking to people normally. Someone pulled out our graduation photo and we started talking about it. He's not there. And when I asked him why he didn't attend, it was a great day, you missed out kind of way, not confrontational. He said, I don't remember, must have been busy. And that confused me even more. Asked my friend that I'm still in touch with and meet on almost a weekly basis, and he said, thank you, so I'm not the only one. And I have no idea what to make of this. I thought maybe he just got the virus and there were just rumors that he died. Aside from the fact spreading rumors about someone's death is extremely frowned upon. No one just forgets they got the virus. Who the hell misses their graduation? If you do, it must have been a big deal, but he doesn't remember. I specifically remember people posting, "You'll be missed" and "Rest in peace" Instagram stories. I dismissed it as a false memory until my friend said he remembered it too. My wife, who was my girlfriend during graduation, remembers me mentioning a classmate's death from COVID, so I know I'm not misremembering things. There's no posts about his death on my friend's timeline, and his Facebook has been inactive since 2018. I'm sure it's him, not someone else, because no one died before graduation or even a year after, except him. What could this be? I'm not necessarily saying it's a glitch in the Matrix, but it's freaking weird. Case file number 2131, written by Dorothy in Borderland. Chai never chosen, yet there, unfrozen. I've been confused about this since it happened. I met this guy a few weeks ago, and we decided to go to this tea place. We arrived, and were taken to the downstairs area by the waitress. We got seated, got our menus, and then she left and went back upstairs. It was only us and like 4 or 5 other customers in that room. It was a small area. We started looking through the menu. This place had like hundreds of tea options. We decided to get chai tea. They had around 4 options of that too. We eventually decided on the masala chai, then closed the menus and just started chatting. We had been talking for like 20 to 30 minutes when I realized the waitress never came back to take our order. So I asked the guy, is she ever going to come or... Then he said, oh, I think we have to push a button to call for them. Indeed, there was a button under the table. The waiters didn't mention it, by the way, so I pressed it. Within like 30 seconds, the waitress came with the masala chai that we never ordered. We didn't place an order yet. When she left, I was like, did we order? And the guy was also like, we didn't, did we? We were confused as hell, but he got over it pretty quickly, so we never asked, but I'm so confused. No waiter ever came downstairs to take our order. There was no one there besides us and the other guests, nor did the guy ever leave the table to order. So what could it be? Glitch in the Matrix? Time slip? Someone I told it to said maybe they had a microphone or something. I think that'd just be weird as hell. Or a waiter overheard our conversation, but that'd be super unprofessional. They would still need to come and confirm the order or inform us how it works, etc. Also, When I pressed the button, she came immediately. So even if we did order, what could possibly take them half an hour to make a pot of masala chai? Or why would they wait until we call for them to bring it? Further adding to the glitchy feeling of it all. Very glitchy tea indeed. And yeah, the idea there's microphones under the table or something is very creepy. I don't exactly want a restaurant of any kind to have microphones at the table. No. Creepy. Case file number 2132, written by Julia Fox's wife. Dry ceiling, wet feeling. This is such a weird thing because it's not even that crazy. But this happened a while ago, and sometimes I'll just think of it and still be like, huh? It was weird and I still don't know how it happened. But one day I was in the kitchen. Yes, I was somewhat near the sink, but it was not on, nor had it just been used. And I was sort of just standing there, probably on my phone. I think I was, because my hands were not in a resting position. Just a very mundane moment in life that I can't remember fully. Until I randomly get a splash of water on top of my hand, and my immediate thought is, oh crap, there's a leak in the ceiling. So I of course look up expecting to see drops of water falling, but no, nothing. So I'm like, what? How come I have water on my hand then? So I grabbed the kitchen stool from the island and put it on the spot where I was standing and stood on it to feel the ceiling, and it was bone dry. So I got down and now I'm really bothered because how did that happen? So I'm feeling my hair because maybe my hair was just a bit wet or something, even though I didn't come from outside and I hadn't had a shower. Nope, it's still dry. I feel my clothes, dry. I look at the floor, feel it, and it's all dry. No one else is in the kitchen with me, and I don't think it was a sink because, well, first, it wasn't even on, and even if it was, I wasn't close enough to it for water to even get near me. And even if it did get on me, how would it have landed on top of my hand in a big water droplet? Usually, if you get splashed by the sink, it's just small spray. But again, it wasn't even on, nor was I close enough. I then seem like an insane person because after analyzing the entire kitchen and myself for an explanation, I go to my mom and dad and sister and explain it, and they're all like, okay. I don't know, it's just water. Probably just got wet somewhere. And I'm like, no, you don't get it. It came from nowhere. How did this happen? And no one else cares, so that was that. And now I'm randomly remembering it. Does anyone else have a clue? Is this a thing? Now and why? Am I crazy? Okay, you're not crazy. And there's multiple stories, though very rare, of water appearing from nowhere. I remember one where someone was just lounging on their couch and a pretty substantial amount of water just crashed on them. Nothing from the ceiling, nothing from anywhere. No one else in the house, not a prank, just mysteriously appearing water. It's a very strange phenomenon. Case file number 2133, written by Texan Here 72. Rebellion's blame, now back with no shame. My son and I were talking about this at Christmas, and we told his new wife the story. And she got creeped out just like we did. Back around 2008. I was working in the front yard of my house one day when I noticed the screen of my son's bedroom window was missing. I was pissed off, assuming it got removed and probably broken as he was sneaking out of the house one night. He was a very rebellious teenager after his mom died. He staunchly denied having done anything with it, point blank stating that when he sneaks out, it's through one of the doors. I didn't believe him. I just knew that he had damaged it and then hid it or thrown it away. I also wondered if maybe it was a result of a failed break-in attempt. I looked all over for that missing screen or its parts without success. Of course, I planned to replace it, but just never got around to it. The bottom part of the window where the screen would be was blocked by a row of hedges, so it was one of those things that came to mind only now and then. I did not forget the missing screen, but it's a custom house where you just don't order screens that magically fit. Plus, I sometimes procrastinate about things. I remember being pressured into getting an estimate to replace all of the windows in about 2015. The salesman even commented about the missing screen when we were walking around the house. I didn't get the windows replaced because I thought the price was outrageous and just not worth it. Then in 2022, we had a severe hailstorm, which chewed up my roof. My insurance company came out to approve the repairs. The adjuster and I walked around the house looking at all the damage to the gutters, windscreens, glass, etc., to see what was covered by my policy. That's when I noticed it. The missing window screen was no longer missing. It was firmly attached to that window. It didn't have any damage from the hail. It didn't look brand new, and it was one of just a few without hail damage. 2 windows actually had broken glass. I literally got goosebumps from just writing that. Where was that window screen for 14 years? How did it get back on the window? My son, who is now a responsible adult, gets just as creeped out thinking about it. We have no idea what happened. Case file number 2134, written by Idea Haver. Bag packed, MacBook tracked, then back intact. I experience glitches on and off and just kinda take note and move on, but this one is still sticking with me a month later. What makes this glitch stand out for me is that my kids were there to see it, and another even weirder laptop glitch happening across town at the exact same time. I was packing my weekend bag, and I needed to take my MacBook. I had packed my bag on my bed. This was the only thing on my bed. So I went to grab my MacBook, but I couldn't find it. I looked everywhere it usually is and then everywhere else. My son, 18, and my daughter, 10, were helping me, and I was getting increasingly agitated. The search went on for about 25 to 30 minutes. It was pretty thorough, and lots of ground was covered twice. Then my daughter did what I sometimes tell her to do when something is lost. She asked the house for my MacBook back. I was sitting on my bed when she asked. Then I told my kids I would finish looking for it and they shouldn't worry about it. I stood up and was staring at the bookshelves on the wall opposite my bed, trying to think. While I was staring, I put my hand down on my bed, right on top of my MacBook that was suddenly in the exact spot I had just been sitting. My bedding is white. My MacBook is gold. It very much stands out. It was so sudden and weird that I even sat back down, right on top of it, to see if I could have been sitting on it without realizing it. There is no way. My son walked back to my room during this little experiment and laughed at me, and he did not believe me that I had just found it sitting there. It was closer to the top of the bed, and my bag was at the bottom. We had all looked in that area because I sometimes slide my MacBook into a basket next to my bed. We had probably all sat in that exact spot during our search, when we would pause to try to talk and try to remember where it could be. By then, my daughter is back in the room, and we are all just staring at my MacBook when I get a text from my daughter's babysitter, asking me if I'm missing a laptop. Apparently, she had just sat down on her couch and sat right on a Chromebook she had never seen before. My daughter had been there earlier that day, and she was the only one who had visited her babysitter's house that day. It was not my daughter's Chromebook, and I knew that, because I had found my daughter's Chromebook like 9 times while I was looking for my MacBook. Plus my daughter's is newer and in a purple protector. The Chromebook she had was older and not in a case. I called her and explained what had just happened with my MacBook, and she opened the Chromebook while we were talking. It was password protected, and she could tell it belonged to someone named Shane. Only the first name was visible on the lock screen, but she had no clue who Shane is. She watches my daughter and her grandson, who is 6 months old. No one else lives in their home besides her and her husband. When her husband got home a little bit later, he had never laid eyes on the computer, and neither of them knew a Shane or how this Chromebook came to be on their couch. But she doubts she could have gone all day not noticing a laptop on her couch. Anyway, a month later, and she still has the Chromebook, and no one has come forward to claim it. The timing and similarities are just too crazy. Like, we both could have been sitting on a computer at the exact same time. Me when I was conducting my sitting experiment, and her when she found this mystery laptop. This is one of my favorite glitches, and I still feel bad for Shane, whoever he is. Case file number 2135, written by Megster333. My parents in disguise with empty eyes? This happened to me, 22 female, about a month or so ago. This experience has kept me up at night recently, and the more I think about it, the more unexplainable it gets. It was a Saturday, and I enjoyed filling up my car on the weekend before the week begins. I needed to get gas, and before I left the house I told my dad I would be back in a few minutes. I just needed to get gas down the road at my local Kroger, because it's 0.03 cents off the gallon, and would be back shortly after. Anyways, for some reason, I have an overbearing dad who refuses to believe I know how to pump gas on my own, even though I have been doing it for over 6 years. I leave the house to get gas, and as I mentioned, the Kroger is right down the road. I have to take a massive left turn to get into the area, so I like to drive all the way around to avoid that massive turn, aka making a 2-minute drive into a 7-minute drive. As I'm making the drive, about 3 or 4 minutes in, I notice my parents' car approaching me and begin driving close behind me in my rearview mirror. Their car is unique, as the color is a specific light grayish blue. I roll my eyes as I'm thinking, wow, they seriously think I can't get gas on my own and are following me to make sure I can. I approach a stop sign and quickly check my side view mirror to get a closer look, to make sure it's them. Obviously annoyed. In my mirror, I see it is my parents driving. I know so intensely that it was my parents, like I know what my parents look like. There's something off, I notice. Their expressions are completely blank and just empty. I can't explain it, but it had to be my parents, but like all energy from them was gone. They looked like NPCs. I decided to shrug it off and keep driving just the last stretch to the Kroger. As I turn into the Kroger, I notice my parents are no longer behind me. I pull up to a pump and pull out my phone to check my parents' location. They are at home. There is no way in any universe that they had enough time to make it back home from where I had last seen them on the road. I finished pumping gas and made my way home, still very confused by the encounter. Later that night, I asked in a laughing manner to my mom, "Hey mom, why were you and dad following me earlier?" She looks at me super confused and says, "What are you talking about?" I explain what I saw on my way to get gas and she replies with, "Dad and I haven't even left the house today." I must preface by saying that my parents are incredibly religious, conservative, straightforward people and would not prank me like this. As such, I know with absolute certainty that they did not leave the house. So please tell me, who was following me? Case file number 2136, written by Mysterious Ganache 384. Celiac Conundrum, a mystery we must bestow. In 2012, my husband, at the time we were separated but sharing custody of our daughter, got diagnosed with celiac disease by having an endoscopy and biopsy. For those who don't know, celiac disease is an autoimmune disease that eats away at your intestinal villi. If you ingest wheat and try to treat it, you have to be on a strict gluten-free diet. It's hereditary, so you can't get it without the gene. He had to change his entire lifestyle to make sure all the foods we were eating were certified gluten-free. At the time, my daughter was also showing symptoms, and based on his diagnosis, we put her on a gluten-free sitter as well. This put a psychological toll on her, as she often had to be left out of having treats at school and cakes at parties, and I had to make and bring all of her food everywhere. She was formally diagnosed a few years ago by endoscopy, and biopsy too, after a gluten trial as well. Fast forward a few years, and my husband began having nutrient deficiency. I told him to visit his GI because he's probably eating hidden gluten. It can fry your intestines' ability to absorb nutrients. Here's where it gets interesting. Since they found no record of his celiac diagnosis, which was done by his former doctor who is now dead, they made him repeat the gluten trial and endoscopy. When his results came back, it was negative for celiac. Now I argued they messed up and missed it in the biopsy because that is not possible. And how the hell would our daughter have celiac disease if he doesn't? and because of his former diagnosis that had gone missing, he drives around San Francisco to all of his former doctor offices. All are now closed. His doctor who died, the office across from him, all gone. He finally finds out how to retrieve a copy from the deceased doctor records, and guess what? The original test was negative for celiac. What the actual? Prior to that diagnosis, he didn't even know what celiac disease was. When he was diagnosed, he had to go through a massive education about it and change his whole lifestyle to be gluten-free. Our daughter has it, which, like I said, it's hereditary. So that means either I have it and I'm the only one in my family that has ever had it, and I'm completely asymptomatic, or I don't even know. I'm so baffled by my poor daughter. She always feels like an outcast due to having celiac disease, and always being the one left out of sharing food and company with people outside of her gluten-free home. This has to be some sort of glitch where in this universe, the results of the original tests were negative instead of positive. Now I don't know what to do with my daughter. Do I retest her and see if hers disappears as well? A whole freaking disease disappeared. This is insane. Wow, this is definitely interesting. And yeah, it might be a different universe shenanigan going on. But then, does that mean you crossed over, or the entire family? Case file number 2137, written by Wooden Pigeon 4. Picked in private, served by fate. I always look at menus online before I go to a restaurant. I like to pick out what I might want to eat ahead of time. I was visiting a city I had never been to, and I figured I'd go get Indian food since we didn't have an Indian restaurant where I lived. Before going, I looked at the menu. I decided on samosas and chicken vindaloo. I'm not really a dessert person at all. I prefer savory food to sweet food, but I figured that I had never tried an Indian dessert, so I might as well. They had maybe 4 or 5 dessert options, and I picked one while still at home. I don't remember the name. I went to the restaurant, and after I had finished my food, the waiter asked if I wanted dessert. I told him I did, but that I couldn't remember the name of the dessert, and it was on the tip of my tongue. I asked if I could see the menu again, and he said he would go get it. A few minutes later, he still hadn't come back with the menu, but another waiter, not my original waiter, came to the table with the dessert. I asked him the name, and it was the exact dessert I had picked. This is weird because I hadn't said the name of the dessert while in the restaurant. I had picked it at the hotel while looking at the menu online. It's even weirder that it wasn't our waiter, and that the dessert he had brought to the table is the exact one I had been thinking of. Case file number 2138, written by Nardog Cornell. The Glitch That Walked By. I live in a fairly small city, and I'm pretty familiar with most of the area. I work from home, so I don't get out much during the weekdays, but on weekends, I usually take long walks to clear my head. Saturday afternoon, I decided to walk around a part of town I don't normally go to. It's not far from where I live, but it's not in an area I've really explored. Mostly industrial, not a lot of foot traffic, and not much to see besides warehouses. Anyway, I'm walking down this long, straight road when I see someone coming towards me. It was a guy about the same height as me, wearing a hoodie, jeans, and a backpack. As he gets to about 15 to 20 feet away, we are now staring at each other. At this point, I genuinely feel like I'm having a panic attack. It was the weirdest feeling I've ever had. I know this person. It was me. Not in the sense that I thought we looked alike. I immediately recognized everything about him. The way he was walking, his posture, the way his hand was resting in his pocket, it was me. When we passed each other, neither of us said a word. We just continued looking each other up and down. It was a feeling that we were 2 versions of the same person. The expression on his face was confused and fearful. His eyes were wide, and it was like he was thinking the exact same thing I was thinking. I didn't see him walking away. When I turned back around after an awkwardly long time staring at each other, I waited what felt like 10 to 20 seconds before turning around again, and by that point, there was no sign of him anywhere. There were no alleys or places he could have ducked into. I walked back to where we passed each other, and nothing, no trace of him. It was like he just vanished. At first, I tried to brush it off. I figured I was just imagining things, but I think I'm trying to convince myself, really. I've tried Googling this, but the results were just about urban legends or stories about doppelgangers being some kind of bad omen. Nothing useful. My friends say I'm probably just stressed out or seeing things, but honestly, I can't shake the feeling that I slipped into some kind of parallel universe, or that there's some glitch in the Matrix happening. I've also noticed I keep getting déjà vu about random things. Has anyone ever experienced something like this, or am I losing it? I swear I didn't hallucinate this. Case file number 2139, written by Pork Pie Honey Punch. The surgery's tale in a scar's detail. My mother had thyroid cancer. She didn't want the surgery because of the neck scar. She came home from the surgical consult happy because the surgeon said he'd do a type of surgery where they cut out inside the bottom lip across the gum line and pull the organ up and through the mouth, thus no neck incision or scar. Transoral scarless thyroid surgery. After surgery, when I visit, she's happy about this outcome, peels her lip down and shoves her face in my face to show off the incision. I saw it with my own eyes. It was unmistakable and gross. I was like, okay, very nice, mother. Please get your mouth out of my face. I would have obviously noticed if it was a fresh slice across her throat. There's no mistaking any of this. I saw it with my own eyeballs. My father was talking about her being happy about the surgery. I have siblings who witnessed all of this. You don't just accidentally dream all of this up. Fast forward years. I developed the same thyroid cancer. It's genetic. I asked the surgeon about the mouth version of the surgery, so no scar. He says nope, we don't do that kind of surgery for most cancer cases, because you have to cut the thyroid into pieces to get it through the mouth. And if there's a tumor in a spot we don't know about yet, cutting it could seed cancer cells in this area and increase the risk of it spreading. So after the appointment, I texted my mother and said your surgeon fricked up. They shouldn't have done that kind of surgery. She was like, what the hell are you talking about? I told her what the surgeon told me. She tells me she doesn't know what I'm on about, and she texts me a picture of her neck, which has a faint sliver but noticeable healed scar across the front. My father insists I'm nuts, and he never heard of the mouth surgery and it sounds crazy, and to stop, yada yada. My siblings are just like, yeah, you're nuts. She had a cut across the neck. Supposedly, I even said a joke about her needing to tell people she was mugged at an ATM when they asked about the incision, which I definitely didn't do. They cut open her mouth. I can't stop thinking about this. It breaks my brain every time I try. How is this even possible? Is my mother my mother? Is my family my family? Have I changed to someone else that they've never told me about? Did some machination of the universe rewrite how this surgery happened to correct the surgeon's decision, and I was the only one that didn't get my memories of it rewritten? Quantum immortality, I'd have to guess. Case file number 2140, written by Saint Anna on Pluto. From wet to dry, no reason why. About a year ago, I was in my bathroom getting ready to shower. I had this hot pink towel that I used, and it's the only one of its kind, so keep that in mind. I grabbed it off the hanger and placed it on the toilet seat cover, which was clean, by the way. After my shower, I went to my room, dried off, and got ready for bed. I left the towel on my bed. Later, I went back to the bathroom to do my skincare routine, and once I was done, I returned to my room to put the towel back. Not sure why I didn't do it earlier. But when I looked, the towel wasn't there. Confused, I went back to the bathroom to see if I'd already brought it there. But it wasn't there either. I searched my whole apartment and it was nowhere to be found. Until I checked the closet, where I keep all the blankets and towels. There it was, folded up and completely dry. Like I hadn't even used it. I was the only one home at the time. Case file number 2141. Written by Low Memory 578. Beefy's Vanishing Act. An emotional impact. I live in a fairly small townhouse with my 2 dogs, mom and daughter Chihuahua mixes, about 10 pounds each, along with my cat, Kiki, and guinea pig, Ghost. I'd been chilling on my phone on the couch with my mama dog and realized it was 1 a.m. So I called my other dog, Beefy, for bedtime. No response from Beefy, which was slightly unusual because bedtime is their favorite part of the day. I figured Beefy was probably napping somewhere. So I shake the treat bag and Mama and Kiki come running, but no sign of Beefy. This really worried me because my house is small and super open, so she would have been able to hear it and come running from anywhere. I checked all the dog's usual hiding spots. Under the beds and the sheets, between the pillows, nothing. I checked every room top to bottom, looking under all the furniture and calling for treats, hoping she'd crawl out from under somewhere. Still nothing. The last time I opened any doors was when I brought them both back from a walk, so there was no way she could have gotten outside. But I checked anyway, just to be safe. I tore the house apart looking for her, and she was nowhere to be found. Mama picked up on the fact her daughter was nowhere to be found, and was frantically sniffing and going between rooms looking for her too. Even she tried all her hiding spots and she couldn't rouse Beefy. She was as worried as I was and continued to frantically search all the rooms. Beefy is also a very emotionally aware dog. If she could sense I was upset, she would be there instantly to come sit on my lap and snuggle. The fact she wasn't coming when I was frantic was what sent me over the edge. Wherever she was, it wasn't an earshot of me. By this point, I was totally freaking out and texted my dad to help me search the neighborhood, since it's late and I live in a rough area. I figured I'd make another round upstairs, and while I did, he texted me that he was on his way. Me and Mama looked yet again, and when I paused to text my dad back, I heard her collar clink like she's walking. I look over the banister, and there she is in the living room, happy as a clam with her tail wagging. She looked perplexed when she saw me and Mama, so worried, but otherwise totally fine. I'm just so perplexed myself by what happened to her. How did my dog disappear into thin air, then come back in like nothing even happened? Dogs are magicians, I swear. Case file number 2142, written by B. Woodfield, The Red Motorcycle Story. Years ago, my stepson got his toy. 2 motorcycles and a launcher to make them race across the floor for his birthday. There was 1 red motorcycle and 1 blue. Not long after getting it, he came to us upset that the red one disappeared. We figured that he got it lost in the mess of the toys or the kids' toy bin, but he insisted it disappeared when he was playing with it, but we moved on. The house was only 1,200 square feet, story and a half, with no basement, so we figured it would turn up eventually. We had a lot of weird occurrences in the house. Voices from other rooms when you're alone, footsteps coming up the stairs when no one was there, finding lights turned on that weren't before, etc. Also, the aforementioned red motorcycle was never found. Years later, in 2009, we were cleaning and packing up, getting ready to move. We sold the house with the appliances, and we had started piling up any instruction manuals, etc., in the back room on the washing machine. I went into the back room to drop something on the pile and noticed something was underneath. I put most of the pile on earlier that day, and I'd cleaned it up, so I was confused, since I was the only one home. Picking up the pile, I found the red motorcycle under the manuals. Of course, by now, with all the other weird crap, I just think to myself, ghosts. And I go into the kitchen and place the toy on the table. Again, I'm the only person home. I continue cleaning and packing and come back into the kitchen. No more red motorcycles. Poof, gone again. Flash forward 7 years later. Our oldest kids are already living on their own, including my stepson, and we're packing and moving again. My wife was packing up some movies and such from the basement when she called me down. In one of the rooms there were these tall, skinny cupboards where we kept all the DVDs and old VHS tapes. Behind the movies, leaning up against the back wall, was again the red motorcycle toy. Not done yet. Intrigued and a little annoyed, I dug around and found the kids' old box of toys. found the launcher with the blue motorcycle still attached, locked the red bike into place, then wrapped tape over the whole thing. We had a large box out front, along the street, where we had been putting stuff we were giving away. I took the launcher with both bikes and took it out with some other toys and dropped it in the free stuff box, knowing the neighborhood kids would find it later. A few hours later, I was hauling so much stuff out, and sure enough, there were about 5 or 6 young kids digging through the box, and the oldest pulled out the launcher, with a blue bike firmly taped down on the launcher, and no red bike. The kids even commented on there being only one after pulling almost everything else out. Came out again later, the launcher and most of the other toys were gone. I wonder if the kids that took it home ever found the red bike in their house, because we haven't seen it since. Maybe it is a haunted toy. Now time for the jokes of the day. Joke number 1. My girlfriend Lorraine dumped me when she found out I was also seeing clearly. I can see clearly now, Lorraine is gone. I love that song. Joke number 2. If I had a nickel for every woman who found me unattractive, eventually women would find me attractive. Gotta get enough money. Joke number 3. How many apples does it take to make an apple pie? 3.14159265358 so on and so forth. Joke number 4. After I spilled hot chai on my lap, my daughter told me my scream sounded like an autotune. I told her that's just what T-Pain sounds like. This is a very good one. And you know it's funny and sad kind of, because if you listen to T-Pain without autotune, he really does sound good. He's a great singer. He doesn't need it. Joke number 5. Did you know that boys have 3 knees? A left knee, a right knee, and a weenie. Oh man, some of these jokes can't even. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony, signing off.